This is the Environmental Protection Commission, public hearing and regular meeting, Wednesday, February 4, 2026. Before I start, I'd like to introduce a new member of the Environmental Protection Commission, Alec Wiggin. Alec is a long-time native Dariener, been in town a long time, and is one fun fact about Alec Wiggin is he is a noted ornithologist. So he'll bring an interesting perspective to our commission. Anyway, moving on, EPC number 27-2025, PL 25-175, 49 Birch Road, Romer, to maintenance dredge a pond. Proposed activities affect wetlands, watercourses, and upland review areas. The property lies along the west side of Birch Road, approximately 500 feet north of Point O'Witz Road, and is identified as map number 11, lot number 11. The zone is R1 and is approximately 1.02 acres.
So Chairman, if you recall from last month, the commission had required this to go to a public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
The notice was sent. The hearing was set for January. At the request of the applicant, there was a request to continue that public, to open it and then continue it in order to allow for the development of necessary additional information. Also, an extension had been granted. We are in a similar situation this month. The applicant's representative, Mr. Voigt from New England Aquatics, has again requested that there would be a continuance, so the commission would vote to continue the public hearing until the March meeting.
Okay, so may I have a motion to continue the public hearing?
I make a motion for EPC 27-2025 to continue the public hearing at the request of the applicant until EPC regular meeting in March 2026.
Second the motion to continue to this public hearing next meeting.
All in favor? Great. New business, EPC 04-2026, PL 26-2, 17 Nickerson Lane, M. Ross, K. Ross, to construct a pier, ramp, floating dock, and other related features in and or proximate to Holly Pond and other areas of resource. The property lies along the south side of Nickerson Lane, approximately 800 feet west of Nearwater Lane, and is identified as map number 52, lot number 9. The zone is R1 and is approximately 0.9799 acres.
Mr. Chairman, the application has made its way to the agenda this evening for acceptance only, and that is meaning that we're acknowledging receipt. We start the statutory time clock and gives the commission the opportunity, at least initially, to determine if a public hearing is warranted for this proposal, and to, if you have any initial comments, you offer your comments and I take a look at it and offer my comments too. For those that have been on the commission in the last 3 years or so, if you recall, the EPC issued a permit on this property for its development for a new floodproof dwelling, pool, and other related features. It was extensively vetted in the public hearing process, and the construction is ongoing. So this project is for a dock in Holly Pond and within the regulated areas.
Okay, so construction is ongoing. Okay,
Yes.
Okay, and so far they've completed everything?
So far, we've been consistent. We do regular inspections and maintaining the controls. It's a substantial project.
I know. As I recall the application back then, there was the state had designated that area to be. It was a special area. I don't remember the exact definition of what it was, but it was like a sanctuary or something like that. Is that correct?
Well, it was like many areas in Darien, they had some areas especially along Holly Pond.
Yeah.
as areas of special concern. So, you know, it could mean that, you know, it could, in terms of wildlife and the habitat, et cetera, that there have been identified species of special concern or an importance that may be in that particular.
Okay, who is, who's the relevant expert to be able to pass judgment on something like that, to say, hey, this is okay, this isn't okay? Okay, because it's the state, it's controlled by the state, so.
Well, I mean,
does the
they're really
state-
the managers of the information, but it warranted an assessment to I just want to say that they get Army Corps of Engineers and state permits for the dock as well. But certainly, the EPC can ask them to have an environmental professional ensure that by constructing a dock, that it will not have an adverse impact on resources, you know, drainage, flooding, et cetera. So it's a combination of environmental.
I just want to be sure that,
Yep.
that, what you term special area of concern, okay, is, I guess if DEP approves the application, I guess that's, I don't know.
Well, they could
We'll have to
certainly
think about that.
Well, they would have had to produce information for that. So it's either produce the information you had, or they'll have to obtain that information.
Okay, well, I agree with getting some environmental expert
Yep.
there too.
Okay.
Because they may be able to drill down and be more specific.
Yep.
For us to be able to pass judgment. Does any other member of the commission have a question or comment? Michael?
I'm thinking about this application. I thought when the applicant came before the commission, we had asked whether there was a conversation of a dock.
Yes.
Did the applicant say that they weren't planning on putting a dock? They
No,
just
they-
needed access to the water
No,
to
they-
put kayaks in the water?
They pulled a path, as I recall. There was a path that went to the water, and they said, we may build a dock in the future, but, okay, if we wanted to, we'd have to come in front of you guys again.
Okay,
And here we are.
thank
Okay.
you for refreshing my memory.
Yes, that was so that was the,
Well, so to answer your question, I remember that the community did come out at the public hearing for the initial application. So for the matters of public interest, I think a public hearing would apply, is my opinion.
I didn't comment on this.
okay. Peter?
I agree, but I would add to that, I would believe a public hearing should be held as a matter of public interest and a significant impact on the environment.
Okay.
I agree with you.
Okay. So do we need a vote to? do we
Yes.
need- Yes, okay. Carolyn, can you make a motion?
I make a motion for 17 Nickerson Lane, EPC 04-2026, to hold a public hearing. For the matters relating to public interest and environmental impact.
I second that motion.
All in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay, does anybody else have any questions besides the public hearing that you'd like Rick to?
So I did have a question about whether, I similarly wondered if the Army Corps of Engineers and DEEP had to weigh in on this application. So is it in the process of being reviewed by
I
them?
think they got
Or they did get?
I haven't studied it yet.
Okay.
I think they have obtained their permits,
They have?
but I can't say for sure.
Okay,
I
it's not
haven't-
in
I haven't reviewed
open
it in
view
detail
yet,
yet.
right, okay. Okay, that's all I had.
The follow-up I had was, sorry, are they proposing to build the dock where the prior access to the pond existed?
The same question of, I would include that in a request for information. It showed consistency with what was previously approved, or show what the impact is on the prior approval.
It's a really good question.
I apologize because I don't exactly remember the initial application, but I remember that the neighbors came out and shared a story as to how the neighborhood accesses Holly Pond. And I don't know if that was through a neighbor's property, or it sounded like when everybody wanted to go out onto the pond, they all went to a designated place, and they had been using that for some time, and then the neighborhood had managed that.
Because it was like vacant, that's why.
I just,
Remember?
yes,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, there was something like that.
Property.
Yeah.
And the applicant, when they submitted the application to build a home, we had asked the question, what is your intention? Do you have any intentions on installing a dock or accessing the water? And at the time, the answer was no, yes, we would come before you. And now I'm thinking, and I recall, I'm sorry, I'm remembering this as I'm discussing it, but I recall the neighborhood saying how they mitigate the, where they're cleaning up the pond in the area that they access it to keep it clean. They were doing some, which was good for EPC because they were maintaining the pond. I would like to hear the background on that again.
Okay, well.
I mean, I
okay.
think that was, it's private property, for one thing, and I think that there was discussion, I started looking into this recently. In fact, they were required to modify their plans to have a 4-foot wide pathway to the water to maintain access for whatever, reason.
Mhm.
There was no recreational dock proposed at that time. There was no provisions for public access to public property, and there shouldn't be any discussion of that, really.
No, we're gonna have a public hearing on it, we'll hear about it.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I think to clarify, the applicant at the time, who hadn't been living there, I think it was a rental property, but it was a rental property
It was
previous.
vacant.
It was vacant, well, I
Yeah.
think there was a tenant in there.
No, there was no
No,
house.
there was no
No?
house.
There was-
Remember, it was like.
There may
it
have
was
been natural
empty
tenants there, but
land.
there was no human living there. That was-
Yeah,
Okay, all right. And there was access to the pond, and then we asked the question, and it was like, we're not really interested in that at the moment. And then the neighbors started talking about how they access the pond down there, and the invasive species, and how they were cleaning up. So, for the purpose of a public, what I'm getting at is, the purpose of a public hearing is, if the community does come back, it would be interesting for them to communicate environmentally what's happening there.
Mhm.
And what would be the disturbance for installing is there going to be dredging required to install the dock? Like, is it all silted up into the shore? Are they?
Well, if they dredge,
What are they
it's not
proposing?
included in this permit,
Right.
and they'd have to come back to us.
Yeah,
Okay, so, I mean, I pass by Holly Pond frequently.
Best I can tell, there's no dredging element here. It's gonna be the same like we looked at all these other docks with the access from the water side of the barge, put the piles in, and drop the floating element in there, assemble the aluminum ramping and other features from the upland side.
I got the impression, I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep it simple. I got the impression that people were walking down the street with their kayak and just walking into Holly Pond. And it wasn't.
No, that's Seagate.
Am I confusing Seagate?
I think you're confusing. Seagate has the Seagate Association, as I recall, as Bill explained it to me once, was at the end of Seagate, they have access to Holly Pond, and they go there, and there's a small dock where you can, put a kayak in and paddle around.
Okay, so I'm confused, so it's my bad.
I live directly across the street on Nickerson Lane. There's no traffic going across that lot to access Holly Pond in any way.
Okay,
So Seagate, you're thinking of?
yeah.
Close.
my recollection of what the neighbors were.
Carolyn, have you going?
No, Carolyn.
My recollection of the concern of the neighbors was because there were so many trees coming down that had been sort of an area for habitat. There were a lot of nesting birds there and so forth, and a lot of the neighbors were objecting to the removal of all these trees. I think that's my recollection of that property, of the public hearing.
Yeah.
Because I think Matt Pop was,
Yes.
one of the people who spoke at the public hearing on behalf of the neighbors, and he was talking about all the nesting birds and everything.
Yeah, I think it was on behalf of the town. I think Matt was hired on behalf of the pond when he had the 46 points. Matt,
Oh.
remember that?
Yes,
Right,
yes.
so, yeah, that was that. Okay, well, we're gonna have a public hearing on this. Anybody else have any questions that you wanna relate to Rick so that he can follow up with the applicant?
And my only question would be, it indicates a floating dock, but what kind of piles need to be driven down, how deep, that sort of thing structurally, into the pond itself, if any.
You all likely know that there are several piers that go out in floating docks already there that have been approved, so
Yep.
Yeah.
it's not that unusual.
No, we know that.
Yeah.
The question is, that's a done deal. Okay, so that, that's a done deal. This is a new one. So we can, it affects our area of regulation.
And a lot of things were done in town years ago and then get grandfathered, but today, in today's standards, may or may not pass, but that's just another side.
It applies to many, many things. Right?
Many things.
Right, yeah.
Oh, the other thing is lights.
Oh, right.
Because I'm very strongly against having
Yeah.
lighted docks.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You had all that?
Yeah, referred back to what we did next door.
Good for you. All right, anybody else have anything? Okay. Drift, EPC 005-2026, PL 26-6, 20 Driftway Lane, J. Wilcox and C. Wilcox. To maintenance dredge portions of a pond. The project affects wetlands, watercourses, the Tokenique Brook, special flood hazard areas and upland review areas. Access to this parcel lies along the east side of Driftway Lane, approximately 1,300 feet south of Tokenique Road, and is identified as map number 66. The lot is number 121. The zone is R1, and it is approximately 3.93 acres.
Another dredging project. The application has made its way on tonight's agenda for acceptance only, meaning that we're starting a statutory time clock, we acknowledge the receipt, and opportunity to determine if a public hearing is warranted for this particular project and to solicit initial, any initial comments you may have. I've been to the site, we'll be generating a list of information we need, and we'll be transmitting it to the applicant, but certainly welcome any questions, comments, and concerns you may have. It's for a partial dredge of this pond.
Okay, are they gonna do a chemical analysis? So we can find out if what the dredging up is,
There's not one provided to date.
today? Okay, so could we request a,
You can.
okay, and then, obviously that depends on what they do with the,
Correct.
what they do with it. Michael, you got anything?
No.
Peter?
No comments.
No?
Of course. Just two quick questions. One, just a curiosity, because we've seen a number of these applications, these dredging applications now, where the amount of cubic yards of material that's dredged goes into the bags, and it dries out, and then, so in every case except this one, it's always mentioned that the material reduces by 50%. This time it's 30%. So I'm just wondering, is that a mistake, or is there some reason why it's 30% instead of 50%?
So,
Can I give a brief answer to that?
no, sure, come on up here, identify yourself, and please.
Hi, my name is Matt Vogt. I'm owner of New England Aquatic Services. The contractor who submitted the application, or representing the homeowner. So in this case, the reason for the dredging is because that is right where the inlet stream enters the pond. And we're really just trying to prevent the full formation of a delta there. It's kind of just some maintenance dredging by the homeowner. And in that area, it's a higher sand content. Sand doesn't reduce in volume because
Okay.
it sort of is what it is. That muckier material, soft biological detritus has a lot of water content, and so that
Okay.
reduces a lot more.
That totally makes sense.
So if
Thank you
it's
so much.
sand,
Yeah,
where's it coming from? From,
It's
it's
just
obviously coming
coming
from upstream.
From upstream, and it's sort of the natural, the material that comes into ponds, and there's always some sand, what happens to happen is that when that water slows down, the first thing to drop out is sand, and then the softer stuff, which is lighter, will go further out into the pond. So that is what usually will create that delta kind of situation. If we were dredging the entire pond, that average grain size would kind of become mixed together, and then you'd start to see those larger rates of reduction because it would be just a higher percentage of softer material. Like, this is going to be a lot of sand and a little bit of muck.
So what are you gonna do with the material? What's the current plan for?
To be hauled, once that dewaters and dries, that'll be hauled off the site by a separate subcontractor.
Sure.
When you do that remedial dredging, how do you determine the depth to which you go?
Great question. So what we do when we assess a pond is we will go out in the pond and we probe down. Every pond kind of has this, what we call the hard bottom, or where we meet resistance. What we're generally targeting is material that is filled in, that's softer. So we have a graduated probe that we push down. Once we hit resistance, that's kind of the depth of that sediment, and that's how we measure and gauge what we're removing.
So you know when to quit.
Exactly, yeah. There's a certain point where it doesn't make it too easy for us to keep going.
and then my only other question was just, there is provision for a planting plan, but there weren't any details on it, so, just like the usual.
That's for Rick.
Yeah, that's for Rick, not, yeah. for Rick. And, whether the planting plan, just where it's sited, is it just, why was that located, is that going to benefit, this would be a question for you, where the planting plan is sited, is that going to benefit the area in the future to reduce the need to have to do this again, or is it just sort of arbitrary where the plants are going?
You've seen the site plan and where it's
Yeah.
sited.
Mm-hmm.
So because this is pretty limited dredging, just in that one area, the section that we have, kind of the planting plan where they're going to plant some shrubs and things like that, that's pretty much where we're going to access.
Mm-hmm.
That just means guides getting in and out of the water. It's going to be a much smaller production than some of the other ones that you may have seen lately. And that was just an effort to say, okay, this is the area where we're working. It's open now. It's not really going to do anything to prevent further need. It's really more just if we're going to be working here, can we put some additional plantings just to, again, help with a little bit of the buffer, because it's the
Right.
one section where there right now isn't really one.
Okay, great, thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt. Anybody else have anything? No. Okay, moving on. EPC 06-2026 PL 26-8, 50 Buttonwood Lane. G. Barsness, to install and maintain a fence installed in and approximate 2 special flood hazard areas, wetlands and watercourses. Property lies along the south side of Buttonwood Lane, approximately 1,025 feet east of Mansfield Avenue, and is identified as map number 10, lot number 48. The zone is R1 and is approximately 1.64 acres.
Chairman, the application has made its way to the agenda tonight for acceptance only, and again, acknowledging receipt, and to start the statutory time clock, determine if a public hearing is warranted for this, and to solicit any preliminary comments you may have on the application.
But, Glenn, any?
I don't have any questions, no.
No questions.
No question?
Just that what was submitted wasn't like super helpful. It's really hard to kind of see, like, even when you enlarge it, like, you can't really read what's,
I agree with that.
it almost seems like it's a screenshot of.
It was a screenshot of an existing plan, so he knows there has to be a resubmittal. We'll make a scan of that copy.
That
so
would be
it's more
good, that would be
visible.
helpful. And also the fence, as I understood from this, I mean, there was no narrative or anything. The fence has already been put in, correct?
Yes.
Because there's a picture of it.
Mhm.
So this is an approval after the fact, kind of?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, okay.
I got most of it in before I got in contact with it.
Okay.
New homeowner,
Uh-huh.
Did a neighbor call, or did you drive by?
both.
There's a project on Buttonwood currently, right, on the corner of?
Yes,
Mansfield.
this is not it.
Okay,
That's
This is down the street and on the right side
Thir-
instead of that one's on the left.
okay.
1,025 feet. Okay. East of Mansfield
Hey,
Avenue.
I didn't grow up in this town.
There's a lot of good comebacks for that one.
How'd you get on this committee?
Alec, you got anything? Okay. Okay, moving on. EPC 07-2026, PL 26-125, Old Parish Road, T. Harris, to install a playscape fence and other related features in a special flood hazard area and proximate to wetlands and watercourses. The property lies along the east side of Old Parish Road, approximately 350 feet south of Middlesex Road, and is identified as map number 19, lot number 37. The zone is R1 and is approximately 1.48 acres.
Mr. Chairman, like the preceding three, this application has made it to the agenda for acceptance only. Again, meaning that we're starting a statutory time clock, acknowledging receipt, and determine if a public hearing is warranted, and to solicit any initial comments you may have based on your review of the plans and inspection of the site. I've been to the site, and I'll have my own list of information that will need to be addressed as well.
Okay. I'll start with reasonable and prudent alternatives. Okay, the applicant is required to provide some. I see this and the proximity of the playscape to the wetlands and watercourses is, in my mind, I mean, I have an open mind listening to this, but with the information provided, I'm looking for alternatives. Okay, from a personal standpoint. I don't know how the rest of the commission feels, but this is, if this was a generator, a health or safety issue, et cetera, that's one thing. This is a playscape. Okay, this is a nice to have. So, Michael?
That was my only comment, and I had a similar sentiment that you just pointed out.
Yeah, I'm gonna third state that, that this is probably from an environmental perspective, the worst possible place to locate a playscape on what is a otherwise sizable property.
Yeah, alternatives, definitely. Also just greater detail on which trees are being removed, because there was a list of trees in the narrative, and then there were some photographs, but they didn't really, they mentioned that there were some dead and alive trees that were being removed. I would just like to know, because it looked like there was one really huge tree back there in the photographs. Looks like that probably is one of the ones slated for removal as well, but it wasn't one of the ones mentioned in the beginning.
Excuse me a second, Carol. Have any trees been taken down?
No.
No?
To date?
To date?
No.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Carol.
Oh, no, let's see, it says there's no work in the minimal grade. I'd like more greater detail on it says minimal grading in the upland review to create the flat space, like what do they consider minimal grading? Right, and they said that there's a total of 4 trees that are greater than 4 inches in caliper to be removed. I'd like sort of an accounting of those trees. And, what type they are.
Planting plan.
Yeah, absolutely, planting plan. They do have 225 native sedges slated to go in, but it doesn't really explain where they're going in, and maybe they could do something, have something a little more,
Mm-hmm.
just sedges.
Okay.
I just had one question. Were there particular constraints from the property point of view that required them to request this play area in a particular?
Well, there's that's all part of the alternative discussion. I think if you see, there's quite a bit of already developed space between the house, and if you notice on the plans, they show I think it's a limited lawn and landscape or a fence line. So there is quite a bit of area that is, I'm guessing, grass that is between the house. There's a foot and a half of snow on it today. And then beyond the fence line is woodland. So is there alternatives? I mean, is there alternative space that they can,
I just wondered if there are major constraints that required it to be exactly.
Right, like
Well,
trees or something.
we
yeah,
agree.
no, Yeah.
Let them, if it comes down to it, Alec, it's an excellent question, and that's why we can, or the applicant should normally request, well, we want to do this because this is the best, et cetera. And we've considered alternatives A, B, and C, and they're not good because, okay, and so let the applicant present that to us, and that would come out during that statement at that point in time. So that's the way that would work, going just to so, anyway, anybody else have anything on this? No? Okay, old business, EPC 25-2025 PL 25-168, 52 Blueberry Lane, S. Stack and S. Wallerstein, Venezia, to maintain a stone fireplace walls and patio constructed within close proximity to wetlands, watercourses, and special flood hazard areas. The property lies along the east side of Blueberry Lane, approximately 775 feet south of Oxford Lane, and is identified as map number 7, lot number 41. The zone is R2, and is approximately 1.86 acres.
So Chairman, for those who have been on the commission for at least a couple of years, you may remember that there had been an application on this property a couple of years ago that ultimately was withdrawn to allow the applicant to develop additional information to address these concerns. The application is to maintain what was an expanded patio, and on that expanded patio was an outdoor fireplace. And it lies within close proximity to, and I'll go through the details of the property itself, but it's within close proximity to two of these very small pocket wetlands that essentially, if you go out there and look, you wouldn't even know there were wetlands. They were just based on a small depression in the lawns that were there. So just to get some information onto the record, the property's been developed. It supports a single-family dwelling, driveway, walkways, fences, playscapes, there's sheds, and other related features on the property. Is currently served by both private subsurface sewage disposal areas and a well. The site, in terms of resources, is extensively upland, but the priority is to reach a stony brook in the extreme eastern portions of the property. There's a narrow wetland fringe along that section of Stony Brook, and then there are these two independent, isolated pocket wetlands that are along in the vicinity of the dwelling. A soil scientist went out and verified the location and classified the wetland soils in those areas, and those are outlined in the agenda summary report. And again, pocket wetlands, lawn.
Mm-hmm.
The areas in the eastern reaches of the property along the brook and along the wetlands in that vicinity is woodland. The eastern, maybe about the eastern third of the site's in the flood zone. It affects parts of the dwelling, the septic system, again, all the historic pieces of the property. The new construction is outside of the flood zone. And again, that's been defined on the maps. And so the applicant is expecting to, or request that the patio be maintained as well as the fireplace. And you will note that the project necessitates the applicant to regrade portions of the property, to abandon some existing drainage pipes that exist, and install an alternative drainage system to mitigate drainage and improve water quality. the applicant is required to demonstrate the absence of impact on resources. What measures are used to mitigate drainage impacts, measures that are used to mitigate potential water quality impacts, and to mitigate for unavoidable impacts. And the task is to come up with a plan that is responsive to what this commission requires in terms of planting enhancement. And again, for filtering runoff or enhancing the overall conservation values of the regulated areas and property. So the applicant has provided a site development plan that was prepared by an engineer. Overall, the development between the expansion of the patio system, but the drainage that's being proposed will temporarily and permanently affect about 2,600 square feet of the upland review area only. There are no direct wetland watercourses or floodplain impacts. The new features are no less than 3 feet to the edge of this isolated wetland pockets. It's about 137 feet to the watercourse and about 134 feet to the riparian fringe wetland that adjoins that watercourse. There will be no trees of size, and there were no trees of size that were lost as a result of the imposed improvements. The applicant also, the engineer, has done a drainage plan that has secured the endorsement of the town's peer reviewer and is essentially abandoning some existing substandard drainage that's there. And they will be doing a new system that connects a series of catch basins to a level spreader that will allow any runoff from this portion of the property and from the patios to filter more than 130 feet down to the edge. First of all, infiltrate into the ground into the level spreader, but also any overflow. Overflowing on the property more than 130 feet to the edge of the brook. The only qualifying thing is that just to clarify, that any catch basin that's being proposed should have a full 2-foot sump and outlet controls to allow that the pipes and the level spreader to function properly, prolong the life of those things, and not to clog them as well. It'd be a good point of maintenance and service. The engineer has confirmed the absence of impact on drainage in the adjoining properties and water quality. And again, it gained the endorsement of our peer reviewer. Additional water quality measures that have been incorporated into the plan include sediment fences and silt fences and a sediment and erosion control plan. And landscaping has been proposed, again, with the purpose of adding some conservation value to spaces that need to be revegetated to help filter runoff, help displace what is now lawn. And on that plan, you'll note are the commission's standard notes having to do with invasive control, the period of conducting that maintenance of invasive control, the use of synthetic deer repellents, use of substitutions in plant material under only the direction of the landscape designer and staff. And just for the record, this included a number of true native trees, flowering dogwoods and shrubs, red osier dogwoods, viburnums, and winterberry that are going to be installed, again, primarily down by the edge of the river where they really will have some value. I'm available to answer any questions. We'll go from there.
I don't have any comments.
No comments.
So with regard to the planting plan, Rick, you mentioned that it is displacing lawn. On the planting plan, it looks like it's on the other side of what I believe is a chain link fence.
There are some bare spots beyond the chain link fence. I think it's a kind of a deer fence that had been existing there for some period of time.
Okay.
But there were also, again, they were placed more so for the perimeter and to filter the runoff. The perimeter of or the barrier.
Right, I like the
Between-
location of it, I think it's, I think
Between the
it makes a
landscape
lot of
space
sense.
and the more native.
And it
place.
seems like it's, I mean, it doesn't say how wide it is, but it looks like it's fairly,
Oh, it's
deep.
scalable, but they're also displacing things like Pachysandra and stuff
Mhm.
that's there now, so, you know, you get into
increases the conservation value.
Right.
Would we want to recommend like a boulder demarcation in the area where it's on the lawn side of the fence, or not?
I mean, I think a lot of it is sitting with, I mean, you certainly can.
Mm-hmm.
I always get a little nervous about boulder demarcations in the floodplain,
Oh,
but you certainly can do it to define the limit of lawn and landscape, and then it's probably a good idea.
okay, that was just one of my comments. And then I also had a question about the pipe that's currently draining into the brook that is going to be truncated, and it's gonna be, there's those other two pipes that are gonna have the, so is that existing pipe gonna be just left underground, or is it gonna be dug up and removed?
I think they're leaving this one in down just to reduce the water disturbance.
Yeah, that's
I
what
think I think he talks about capping it.
capping it,
Yeah.
okay. So it's just gonna be left there, but it will not be functioning,
Right.
obviously.
Remove 5 linear feet of the existing drain pipe, install concrete plugs and cap at both ends. to
Okay.
abandon in place.
So it's just to reduce the amount of disturbance.
And also, it's been there historically. If you do
Mhm.
note, a lot of the piping that was there, again, since the house, I'm guessing,
Yes.
since the house was constructed, goes off the property.
Yeah.
Goes onto the abutter's property.
Right.
So they're maintaining their construction limits on their parcel, but they're eliminating that direct discharge into Stony Brook in
Mhm.
some
Which is
shape or
good,
form.
yeah. And then my last question is, so you said that the deer fence, that was existing, that isn't anything that went in?
Yeah, I asked the applicant,
I
there
know,
was
and
a
I
deer
didn't-
fence there, so they may have done some maintenance over time since they owned the property,
Mhm.
but there was a deer fence there.
Okay. And the 626 square feet and increase in impervious coverage, so there was as I understand, an unpermitted patio. Is the 626 feet, does that count that, or is it in addition to?
I think the way he computed it was, there was a patio that was there existing, there was one larger patio space that was further to the east that was reconstructed. And I think maybe that existing patio was modified to some, I think that's a total new imperviousness.
Okay, so it's not taking into account that other unpermitted area,
Other unpermitted.
the patio that
But
was.
there was a patio there, they installed a brand new patio in addition to what was there, and then
Mhm.
they modified this one, and they put up the exterior fireplace.
Okay.
Nice exterior fireplace.
Okay. My only other comment would be, I don't think it's mentioned on the planting schedule, but given that there are those two pocket wetlands, which are, they're not that small. I mean, they're you know, maybe it's not drawn to scale on this, but I would just, if they could recommend organic land care because it's, you know, right in the wetlands, that would be helpful, I think. I don't think I see it here. Oh, actually, no, I take that back. It does say organic land
Land
care
care
on
at the
the site.
site, especially in the up review.
Okay, got it. Sorry, I
I
missed
thought I
that.
remembered it. Being-
Yes. That's all I have.
Anybody else have anything for this application? So, okay.
So we'll draft a resolution.
Draft a
for
resolution for approval next time.
Approval next month.
The next application is EPC 26-2025, PL 25-174, 410 Hollow Tree Ridge Road, Weaver Country Club, Inc., to maintenance dredge pond. The proposed activities affect wetlands, watercourses, floodplain, and upland review areas, access to the property lines along the north side of Hollow Tree Ridge Road, just west of Hanson Road, and is identified as map number 7, lot number 66. The zone is R2, and it is approximately 210.56 acres.
Mr. Chairman, let me just offer some brief comments and get some things into the record that we should. Dredging operation on the golf course. The property currently supports the Weeburn Country Club and Golf Club. The most recognizable point of entry to the property is from that north side of Hollow Tree Ridge Road, just west of Hanson Road. And the area of the pond is kind of like in the center of the property, but in the eastern reaches of the property. And you really have to dig into there to get to the pond that they want to improve at this point. Of course, the site currently supports the golf course, the tees, the fairways, greens, cart paths, irrigation, tennis courts. There's vehicle parking areas there, access drive, walkways, and of course, there's numerous structures and features, pertinent to the function and maintenance of the golf course that pepper the property. It's reported that both the properties are served by both sanitary and sewer and public water. The property itself, in terms of character, supports gently to severely sloping uplands, wetlands, watercourses, ponds, special flood hazard areas, and many large trees, particularly in the eastern portions of the property. There was a soils report that was prepared in advance of the permit application. The soils are outlined on the property. In this case, the wetlands generally form a narrow fringe around the pond. I just want to say that the soils report was done, it was focused on the 1.5 acres of the property that was around the ponds, to assist in the development of the plan. So the applicant's proposing to maintenance dredge the pond by removing accumulated sediments and restore depth, cooler waters, and flood storage capacity. This is to improve the water quality, mitigate flooding, enhance the overall aesthetic values of these regulated areas. Unlike the traditional methods that you've seen in the past, where they drive an excavator out or build a road out, and they excavate it and drip it all over the place. New England Aquatics is here to suction dredge this portion of the pond. And for those of you that don't know the suction dredging, in this case, they'll be doing it with their barge, and they'll be taking it out there and be operated from the barge, and they've predetermined the amount of material that the soft material that they want to remove. It'll be pumped from the bottom and then drained to pumped to their sediment bags that they're going to lay in and they're laying those outside of the flood hazard area and outside of the wetlands. And the material will accumulate, drain, and it will consolidate, and not to 30%, but 50% consolidation.
I know, every one of those has been
I know.
50% except that
You
one.
threw that in
No,
there.
I have a curveball for him later.
So after several weeks, they come back after it's been drained, and it can be removed or utilized. Unlike some of the other properties that we're seeing either before and after on the dredging operations, it's the intent of Weeburn to utilize the material on their property. So it's about 4,000 cubic yards of wet sediment will consolidate down to 2,000. And they've selected a couple spaces on the property, one internal to a building and one in an existing, it's like a binned storage area that they already stockpile materials there. It's kind of bermed around the outside. There's an erosion control plan elements that are proposed to assist in the water quality, consisting of the turbidity curtains and any necessary erosion controls. They've kind of outlined the access, how they're going to gain access around the property. They've also done, as we had requested previously, a flood contingency plan. It's in the floodplain. It's in the reach of the river, and so they have a plan, very basic, of how they act and react and get information in advance of a storm, that they can remove their barges and secure the site in order to limit the amount of damages. Applicant initially reports that about 32,000 square feet of open water, this is about 0.7 acres, and about 10,000 square feet of the upland review area will be temporarily or permanently impacted. In this instance, the applicant did go and obtain a conservation planting plan consisting of native shrubs and ground covers to selectively install around the pond. You know, the careful balance of allowing for the golfing to occur, but at the same time trying to keep the edge a little bit coarse to filter the runoff and to stabilize the bank and to restore space that may be impacted. And if you know that it's gone from New Jersey tea, black huckleberry, steeplebush, low bush blueberry, and then the ground covers are the sedges and grasses and blue stem. And those was developed by William Kenny Associates. Mr. Voigt's here tonight. Any additional questions? And I'm here for questions as well. Oh, okay, that's it.
Matt, please identify yourself for the record.
I'm Matt Vogt, owner of New England Aquatic Services, representing Weaver and Country Club and the contractor who will be doing the work. Mr. Talamelli did a great job stealing my thunder. I thought I was going to have to explain it all, but that was pretty thorough. Just to touch on what was just said, we plan to dredge the whole pond. Again, kind of referring back to what we were discussing before, the goal here is really to remove all the accumulated sediment down to that existing hard bottom or original hard bottom. The pond, I don't know, nothing that I could find suggests that it has ever been dredged since whatever time it was built. So there's a significant amount of sediment and buildup in the pond, really soft, nutrient-rich kind of muck. In some areas, as much as 10 feet of material that is going from the deepest part of the pond to the surface, essentially. There's inches of water. If you're lucky, in some cases, it was getting exposed during some low water times when I was there. So the goal is to dredge that material out using the hydraulic method. In this case, we'll be using a floating dredge barge. It's cable driven, which essentially run 2 cables across the pond, a third between it, and pulls itself along and pumps that material up into the dewatering tubes, where that water will drain out, run across a plastic liner back to the pond, so no water is running across open ground. And then once dredging is complete, those tubes will sit there and allow that material to dry long enough that it can then be, those tubes can be cut open and then that material moved without it being so wet that it is problematic to handle. They're going to be storing the material on the property for future uses as needed when they have to fix holes or whatever else the case might be during their operations, maintenance of the course, I guess. The one thing that I think I've discussed with the owner, the superintendent, is just kind of an ongoing program to monitor the pond and where the inlet comes in and is clearly kind of bringing the worst material in. Just because I don't think that's ever been done before. The idea there is being like, let's not get to this point again. If we can extend the life of this work by keeping an eye on that, if we had to do smaller scale maintenance dredging to get that material when it's a little easier in a smaller area before it starts to fill up to this point, which is a much more involved process. I think kind of ongoing maintenance is the goal and ongoing monitoring. So we're going to be accessing through, there's a gate, actually off the top of my head, I don't know what the road is on that side of the course. But the idea there is with this particular type of equipment, the dredge is on a trailer pulled by a pickup truck. So it's really low impact. We're not bringing big heavy equipment across. There's some pathways that are already paved to get out there most of the way. And really the plan is to be as minimally impactful to the course as possible while we're doing the work. And then once we're done and gone, hopefully you'll never know we were there, except for the fact that you won't be able to walk on water anymore. With that, is there questions that I can answer or anything that I might have missed?
Michael?
I'm not familiar with the Weeburn Golf Course. How many ponds are on the course? I know the big pond.
So I actually don't know that I could tell you the exact number of how many. I know that there's this pond here, which is fed by kind of a stream system that meanders through the course. I think there's a smaller one I know further upstream. And then immediately after this, there's a stream that leads to, I think, maybe the bigger pond that you might be referring to.
That was eventually, no, I have to admit, I was, many years ago, I used to caddy Weaver. So I know Weaver quite well. And down, okay, do you remember when we did the Hanson Road Bridge?
Yes.
Okay, looking north from Hanson, okay, it's at the 15th, part 3. So there is a pond, and it is set, I believe, someone once told me it was man-made because it's very sheer, the slope of the pond is very sheer, it's deep, and that's where they water, that's where they house the water to water the course. And so, that's the way it was. And so that is downstream from this pond that he's gonna dredge.
So my question is, did you evaluate the larger ponds on the property, or were you just asked to look at that one pond?
The one that's further downstream, I didn't do an official evaluation. I was told that that one either had been maintained differently or something in the past. Maybe was done. I don't remember if something was done or if they just weren't concerned about that one, because this one we had material hitting the surface. And in fact, frankly, this pond almost acts like a giant forebay or sedimentation pond to protect that further pond downstream. You know, I think it was so deep that it took a long time for it to get to the point where it's probably lost that functionality now, or is losing it. But it's been successful, I think, in preventing that stuff from going downstream.
I think to answer your question, there's a lot of streams there on the Wayburn property. The only other one that I can think of is along, as you go up Hanson Road to Hollow Tree, that you have the 18th, the 18th hole, and there's some ponds and there's a pond over there that is associated with that. So that would be the only other one I can think of offhand.
Does the club use that pond as a source of water for irrigation or operations on the?
Don't know for sure, but I don't think at this time they're using that one for irrigation. The pond that's further downstream from this is the one I believe there's a pump house that they do a lot of drawing from. I could be wrong, but I don't think that there's.
So just a couple, I'll just ask, this is just my thought processes. One is, were you invited out and you evaluated all the ponds? One of the reasons why you came out is because people were complaining about the appearance or the smell or just the sheer level of debris that's building up within the pond. Is there an environmental impact if these ponds that are tributary are being used for, I mean, I'm not overly concerned about it, it's just a question, I don't understand. Is there a concern if these ponds are being used for operations of the golf course, but they have an ecological value to the environment? So if these ponds are being dredged so that they can contain larger amounts of water to irrigate the club, but then the tributaries that are filling them are operating at a different velocity or volume because they're trying to refill the pond that continues to get drained. Do we have any concern about
That's
it?
only temporary.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what happens is,
I don't.
you know, you're creating the volume and it fills and then it reaches a.
Well, I'm just saying the
static
bowl
level.
is full right now because you see 2 inches of water on top.
Mhm.
You dredge it, and now it turns into a massive vessel. What happens upstream of the pond?
So,
Go ahead.
I would just say that, so when you dredge that material out, that volume is replaced by water.
Correct.
It happens at a slow enough rate during that process that you're not going to see kind of this, we're not going to end up with 2 feet of water in a big bowl with a big kind of flushing situation with water coming in. Really the ecological value in doing this is that right now that pond is holding all this nutrient-rich material, that once we pull that material out of the system, you're now having a positive impact on the water quality as it goes downstream. Because right now it's kind of flushing its way across that material and carrying stuff. So that's kind of the value to doing that. I think it helps both with what's going into the next pond they're irrigating, but then what exits that ultimately and goes further downstream.
Okay.
And then in terms of kind of maintaining it, you know, we haven't put in place a specific plan, but I've talked with the owners or the superintendent about additional work in the future if this goes well and they see positive effects upstream, because there's certainly other things that still need to be maintained that would have a positive impact, you know, additional positive impact on the water system and kind of the way that things are flowing.
Well, obviously we understand the aesthetic of having pretty ponds on a course and the environmental improvement that it provides by maintaining the ponds. CCD has been through here last year, the year before, doing many improvements on the property. Weburn's been here, another course in town.
Woodway?
Woodway, correct. So, I don't know, I would maybe communicate to your superintendent, and I think it would also help staff, is if you guys do I mean, I don't know if all the superintendents talk to one another, is maybe come up with a maintenance plan, and then it's a bit of a boiler template process that the clubs and yourself or the contractors come before Rick and just have like an ongoing staff approval of pond maintenance after you've come to the commission for the initial dredging.
I think that they would certainly be interested in that on their own internal level for that course, whether or not they would.
Well, at least
partner with
I got
other
to
groups and
mention,
make-
I got, you
Yeah.
didn't, you don't have to say, hey, I have this idea. You say, hey, a commissioner brought this idea.
Sure,
up.
yeah, no, I love
Maybe
that.
we ought to
Actually,
investigate that, yeah.
That's a good idea.
Is there any scientific methodology of measuring nutrient levels within ponds?
Sure, so you can certainly test, nitrogen and phosphorus in the ponds, just in terms of the testing the water itself. There's a lot of different water quality monitoring that you can do over time, and it depends on kind of what your goals are as to whether or not that's beneficial for you to know or not, and especially, it fluctuates throughout the year and throughout, water levels and things.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is we put a lot of effort into boulder demarcation, and one of the principal purposes of that around wetlands is to prevent landscapers from putting fertilizer around the wetlands area. And here we have, there's a double objective here for a golf course. It's not only to keep the pond, but it's also to make the greens look nice and attractive. So I'm wondering, is there a methodology to build a little bit more of a buffer around what essentially is a pond or a wetland area, because all water is connected and eventually this water gets further downstream into someplace else?
So I think that's why we kind of relied on Bill Kenny and his group to kind of give us a plan that would have a positive enhancement to that buffer around it. Obviously,
The
we
planting
the
plan.
planting plan, was
done
provided,
by
but I
Bill.
think we had an amended, updated one as well. They're certainly balancing the design, the playability, along with their interest in frankly doing things right environmentally. I think really their objective is to be able to do what they can there to have it make sense and take his recommendations to do that buffer, and also benefit the ultimate water system by pulling this material out and being able to do this kind of maintenance dredging, just to, for an overall enhancement.
I'm in favor of dredging whenever practical, but I'm just wondering if, in your experience at golf courses generally, do they maintain these monitoring systems that you were talking about within the pond area? Is that something that you've seen in practice?
Not so much specifically with the nutrients, kind of the notion of maintaining and monitoring sedimentation is something that we've just recently kind of implemented as, hey, let's be proactive and try to stay ahead of this stuff on a more regularized maintenance schedule. So that kind of stuff we're introducing, I think, is becoming more favorable when we start to look at these projects becoming very big when they probably could have been smaller
Small.
bites over time that would have been less costly because of the infrastructure required.
Thank you.
Alec?
I just have a question on a net basis. Is there an ecological benefit to having the dredging take place?
So ecological benefits, one, again, like I said, just pulling out that nutrient-rich material that's leaching, phosphorus and nitrogen into the water system. You're also going to gain a lot of depth, or regain a lot of depth with this, which will allow for cooling of the water, because right now you basically have some areas which are a little bit deeper, and then areas where you have, a foot of water that just gets really hot in the summer and is just a breeding ground in combination with those nutrients to have, algae issues and water quality issues. So really trying to kind of recapture the functionality of that deeper kind of pond system is the goal in terms of aiding the ecology.
So you would say there's an ecological.
Oh, of course, yes.
No, there clearly is. When from a flood perspective, it creates capacity. So it can absorb upstream volume when it rains, et cetera. So flood control is a very serious issue for the town of Darien. And so this very clearly creates volume so it can absorb. So if it begins to rain, they can lower those and absorb volume. Also, right now, if I had to guess, this is an anaerobic. So very difficult for things to live in there because it's totally anaerobic. As you create depth, it creates a much more positive environment for the watershed. So that I would think, I personally am in, I like dredging, and because I think it has lots of benefits for because I see you're 3 applications. So
Maybe we're gonna be hanging out a lot.
so we're making your summer, so no, I'm in favor of this. Just out of curiosity, having been a caddy there, I know how good these golfers are. What do you do with all the golf balls that go into the water there?
That's a funny question. We work at a lot of different golf courses, so we have some
Sure.
experience with that. I mean, it depends. Sometimes they're kind of screened out. It depends on the dredging technique that we're using. When we do some hand dredging stuff, a lot of times we're filling up buckets with them and chucking them, but to the point where you get, there's just too many to do something with. They'll pull them out of the material as they move it around and whatnot. If you want, I can hook you up with a bucket afterwards if you want to wax them.
As long as the balls don't say Rusty Schreiner, I'm okay. But anyway, did you have?
I have a couple questions. So, in your project narrative, you originally said that there would not be a planting plan because the practice was to have a no-mow zone around the pond, and so they didn't feel that there was real. But then all of a sudden, we saw a planting plan. So how did you move from no planting plan to a no-mow zone to having this nice planting plan?
So admittedly, I take some responsibility for that. So there is existing there already a buffer of
Yeah.
no-mow, tall grasses and things like that. And, I discussed with them, they
There's
didn't
probably
want
some
to change a whole
invasive,
lot.
non-native
Right.
stuff in there.
And then I think I had gone back to them and said, I think we got to do something more than this. And that's when Bill Kenny, who I think does a lot of work for them already, we got him on board to put something better together. And frankly, I probably should have sent a revised narrative that didn't have that passage in there. I thought that, maybe it wouldn't be needed because of that existing buffer, but we were able to get something planned and appropriate, I think.
And then you mentioned some of the chemicals that are in the sediment. And this sediment is going to be used around, as needed, around the golf course. You mentioned some is going to be stored indoors, some is going to be stored outdoors. Is it going to be tested, to make sure that those levels, those chemical levels are, probably I would assume that they would, but it wasn't specifically stated, so.
So really, I think maybe what I had mentioned was just really more the nutrient levels, the phosphorus and the nitrogen in them.
Yes, yeah.
Which would be occurring in any material that they would have. It's just a
Okay.
matter of it's better to have that out of the pond
Right.
than have it in there actively leaching into
But
the
will
water.
it be tested, just since they are planning to use it around the golf course as needed for filling in and things?
I have to admit, I don't know how they kind of go about their system for what they do. I assume that they're
Okay.
going to want to make sure that they're not going to put something out there that's going to be burning any grass that
Right.
they try to plant or something.
Right,
But I
right.
kind of leave that up to the people who are the turf experts. That's beyond me a little bit, honestly.
Okay. Just because we had required that for, as you know, a different project. And then also, you had mentioned that the inlet brings the worst of the material in, but then in the narrative, I think it had said that this, the pond catches the sediment traveling through the course. Maybe I misread what was there. I was thinking, why would there be a lot of sediment coming in if it's traveling over the grass, the course? So you meant the
I think I meant the water course coming in,
course,
and then
okay.
whatever's flowing through the golf course itself, through that.
So going forward, I know that you're going to be, they're planning to have you come more regularly to check these levels before it gets to be as worrisome as it is now. But is there anything that can be done proactively to kind of reduce the amount of sediment that's coming in?
So really proactively would be addressing any other deposits that are upstream that could potentially wash downstream. So that's part of kind of our ongoing discussion with them and putting together a more long-term plan with them once we get this kind of
So
the
maybe
worst of it
doing
done.
some sort of a buffer around some of the
Or
water course.
maybe additional dredging on the course to
Oh,
remove that material before it washes downstream
Clear
during
it.
large storm events.
Yeah.
I can't speak to that definitively. We've had conversations that that's a possibility, but we don't have a specific, plan or agreement in place though.
Okay, that's all that I have.
Anybody else have anything? No? Okay, Rick, can you
Yep.
write up a draft resolution? Thank you. Moving on, EPC 29-2025, PL 25-177, 30 Plymouth Road, S. Jones and S. Jones, to construct a new 2-story and 2-car garage, attached garage, drive, in-ground pool, patio, pergola, drainage, and other related features in a special flood hazard area and approximate to the wetlands and watercourses drainage ways. The property lies along the west side of Plymouth Road, approximately 380 feet north of Shipway Road, and is identified as map number 57. The lot is 35 and the zone is R1. It is approximately 1.29 acres. I believe the fellow commissioners have received a draft resolution from Rick, and I was going to ask if there's any questions or comments on the.
Just that I had those few little I had copied you on my
Yes, yes.
email. Yeah, just,
Thank you.
that's all I have.
Anybody else have anything? Okay. Carolyn, can you make a motion?
Yes. I make a motion to approve EPC 29-2025, 30 Plymouth Road.
Second the motion to approve the permit to conduct regulated activity, 29-2025, 30 Plymouth Road.
All in favor? Thank you. One abstention. And, okay, moving on. EPC 01-2026, PL 25-197, 1 Pilgrim Road, R. Griswold, C. Griswold, to construct a pool house, expand patios, construct walls, install drainage, and implement other related activities within close proximity to wetlands and watercourses. The property lies along the east side of Pilgrim Road, approximately 600 feet south of Stephen Mather Road, and is identified as map number 1, lot number 19. The zone is R2, and it is approximately 2.002 acres.
Chairman, the application was accepted at last month's meeting, and the commission asked for some additional information, and staff had asked for some additional information to give us greater detail and clarify some issues that are pertinent to this proposal. So the applicant is proposing to construct a pool house, expand some patios around an existing pool, install drainage proximate to the wetlands and water courses that are on the property. Currently, the property supports a single-family dwelling, deck, driveways, walkways, and other related features, served by private well and subsurface sewage disposal system. In terms of the resources on the property, it has substantial areas of developed upland that are in the general to moderately sloping range. There are wetlands, there's a small water course, and many large trees, particularly to the east. A soils report was generated. Both the uplands and wetlands were identified on the property. The wetlands, which generally are to the north and east, are linked to a small water course that flows generally from Pilgrim Road through some number of developed residential properties to the east to Dorchester Road. They are ultimately joined Vidwives River Road east of Dorchester Road. In the wetland, the vegetation ranges from scrub growth to light to moderate woods. The property is not in the flood zone. So again, the applicant seeks to construct this pool house adjoining on the existing patio with a slight expansion, and it abuts the existing wetlands and water courses. The applicants are required to demonstrate there's avoided or minimized impacts on the regulated areas and resources, utilizes measures to preserve water quality, addresses potential drainage impacts, and provides measures to mitigate unavoidable impacts or improve the overall conservation values of the regulated areas and property. Important to any application of this sort is the discussion of alternatives. That discussion is fitting and probably warranted. Site development plan has been provided by the design engineer. Note there are no direct encroachments into the wetlands and watercourses. The affected upland areas are generally comprised of the existing pool and patio space, manicured lawn or areas that are support coarsely kept scrub vegetation. And that's really north of the existing pool. There's setbacks of no less than 8 feet to the wetlands and 10 feet to the watercourse. A combination of low-profile walls and building foundations and boulders are employed to support grade in that area. And 2 trees of size are expected to be lost as a result of the development. You may want to have at some point the trees very clearly depicted on the plan. They're a little hard to understand where they are. They're in the western reaches of the property. The applicant reports there's about 4,000 square feet of the upland review area that will permanently or temporarily be affected by the construction. The issue of drainage and water quality was of issue. The increase in impervious surface has been recognized by the applicant, and they have decided to come up with a plan to mitigate any potential drainage and water quality impacts by developing a plan consisting of slot drains, pipes, junctions, and 56 linear feet of precast concrete galleries. Test hole information was developed and a basic operation and maintenance plan was prepared. As a result of doing this work, the applicant report that for the design storms that both the rate, runoff, and volume were reduced, and existing drainage patterns will be maintained, and the project will not result in any adverse impacts on drainage infrastructure or the adjoining properties. In addition, the water quality volume has been retained. It's been referred to our peer reviewer, who has come back and has positively endorsed the design and the impact analysis. Other elements is an erosion control plan consisting of perimeter fencing, anti-tracking pads, etc. The collection structures are equipped with heat sumps and outlet controls to ensure that we're not going to be following our drainage system or unnecessary release of sediment and debris. And we're utilizing infiltration to put it into the ground to cool and treat runoff. There's been an extensive landscaping plan that's been provided to restore and enhance the space between the pool and the wetlands, consisting of a really good collection of true native tree shrubs and ground covers: dogwoods, summer sweet clethra, silky dogwoods, witch hazel, winterberry, Christmas fern, sedges, foam flowers, etc. The typical planting notes that the commission likes to have on their plans have been added as well. There's also been a demarcation feature added to the plan in addition to utilizing the walls that are being proposed as a permanent visual feature. The applicant has taken on the discussion of the alternatives, and I'll have it go through the process, but essentially he talks about what they looked at and what they weighed and looked at the benefits of the proposal in order to come up with this proposal, which they felt is the least disruptive and has the ability to provide the most environmental benefit. But I'll let Evan go in great detail. I've summarized it in my agenda summary report. So with that, I'm available to answer any questions, and we'll let Evan make his presentation as well.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Evan Bauer. I'm a professional engineer with Gusidis Engineering out of Fairfield, Connecticut. Here on behalf of Ryan and Caitlin Griswold to present their project for number 1 Pilgrim Road. And let's see if I can get this for you a little more. So I kind of blew up and colorized the site plan that you have just to kind of make everything easier. So this is an existing pool on the property. They're trying to keep everything exactly as it is with the pool, and it's got some kind of funky shapes surrounding patio areas. The property's on a well and septic. The well's over here. The septic goes partially under the driveway on the far side of the property, well away from the wetlands. We have an approved B100 plan, as well as a approved connection to the existing septic tank and system with the proposed pool house. The owners are proposing a pool house, a patio expansion, which is these kind of purple colored areas through here, a subsurface drainage system to mitigate the increase in runoff for, as Rick mentioned, the 2, 10, 25, and 50-year storm events. And we're proposing also some retaining walls that come along here on the eastern side of the property in the pool. And what those retaining walls are for is they're really only about 2 feet high at their maximum, and they're going to have a fence on top to create a permanent demarcation. For the pool, it'll double as a pool fence and a permanent demarcation. But the reason why we chose this particular area as opposed to some of the alternatives considered, this area when they built the pool back many years ago, or maybe even with the house, there was quite a bit of, the material was kind of disturbed. Everything's elevated about 2-3 feet above the wetlands as is. So we have a building setback line here on the north side of the property that kind of prohibits how we could put a pool house. It would basically be right up against the water line, and that would be kind of a concern for safety for pretty obvious reasons. The other option would be here on the south side. Putting it down on the south side, we have to push the drainage system further out. The grade isn't as high, so to bring it up to the elevation of the existing pool and patio, we'd have to probably import some material, whereas right now we're actually at a net loss. We're going to export material. Nothing needs to come in right now. And we just feel that this is probably the most beneficial area because it creates like a real nice permanent demarcation for what the wetland boundary is going to look like. On the entire downslope, on the wetland side of the property is a temporary double row of silt fence and a mud tracking pad and stockpile areas throughout the property. There's also been extensive planting plan that was put together by, the planting plan was put together by Thesis Landscape Architecture, and as Rick mentioned, a lot of what we intended to do is kind of restore the buffer area that's around the pool, and that's been kind of lawn area that's encroaching the wetlands. So right now, all of the planted area you see through here is a manicured lawn. About 1,600 square feet of that is going to be removed and replaced with a variety of true native plantings. There's also quite a bit of bamboo that, I don't know if you guys have been to the site, but there's a lot kind of through the wetlands and in the upland area. That's all proposed to be removed by hand if possible, particularly in the wetlands area and the upland review area if possible. All fertilizers that are proposed are going to be organic. Any kind of deer repellents are going to be non-synthetic. We're really kind of paying attention to what we're doing over in this area because it's an area that's kind of been neglected, and the homeowners would really like to enhance it, beautify it, and enjoy it for themselves. I'm happy to answer any other questions should you have any, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Can you walk through the prudent feasible alternatives one more time?
Yeah. So, the two alternative locations.
And maybe you could just, and when you're explaining it, maybe you could say, of the alternatives, this was the second most favored alternative.
Sure, I got you. So the first alternative, the primary proposal is to have the pool house here on the east side, which is closer to the wetlands area, simply because that's the area where the space, we have already have that space, and it's the least amount of disturbance with respect to everything else that we wanted to do on the property. The next best alternative was to put the pool house somewhere right through over here. There's an existing 2.5 foot retaining wall that's here. So if we were to put the pool house on this southern side here, the drainage system would have to encroach further closer to the wetlands. We'd also probably have to increase the amount of fill that's brought around just to create some space to walk around that pool house. And again, as it stands right now, we have a net removal of material, which I always find beneficial because whenever you're bringing in fill, there's always questions of where it may be coming in from. Then the third alternative that was considered was to have the pool up on the north side. But unfortunately, or the pool house on the north side of the pool, excuse me. But we have a zoning building setback line that would really prohibit where we can put something like that, which would basically put the pool house, I think it was about 3 feet off the water line. So you'd have like a step down and the water would be right in front of you, which it just kind of creates like a danger that we don't feel is very comfortable.
How come you didn't mention the western side?
So this western side, the existing residence sits right through over here.
But there's a patio there, right?
There's a small amount of patio there, but again, there's a landing and some steps to come down from the house. It steps down about 4 feet from the house elevation down to this grade.
How wide is the patio?
I believe that patio is about 14 feet wide, if I remember correctly, and that's from the bottom step to the edge of water.
And how wide is the pool house?
The pool house is, I think it's a 12 by 20. So again, it would kind of really pinch things in very tight there.
How large is the pool?
I think the pool is either an 18 by 36 or a 20 by 40. That's an existing pool that we're not planning to alter in any way.
And if visually, when you look at the, let me just see what I'm looking at here. I'm looking at your site plan, which is difficult to pull up the topo. So it appears, hold on a second, trying to get the compass. Okay, north is to the left, so east. So to the northeast on wetland flag number 3,
Yep, right here.
it looks like that the grade is 221, rounding up,
That's
right?
correct. Yep.
Okay, and top of wall for the retaining wall for the pool house, what would top of wall be?
224 and a half. So I know it's a little difficult to see because there's a lot going on in that area, but that area slopes up very quickly to the pool patio. So there's a 221 contour that runs right through here.
So, no, I understand.
That's a
I'm pretty good
222
at this.
and then, yeah,
So
220.
your 224, 223, top of wall.
222 bottom of wall, 224 and a half top of wall.
So if you're looking to the east, where you have the drainage, this is all existing drainage?
No, that's all proposed drainage.
This is proposed drainage.
Correct.
Then your contour of 221 is top of patio?
No, so there's an existing where you see that the fence line that goes right along.
Let me, I'll just try to keep it simple.
Yeah,
What's top of coping for the pool? What's the patio?
about 224 and a half is the patio.
So you're 224 on the actual pool tile?
Yes,
On-
yeah.
Before you jump in
Plus
the
or
pool,
minus.
that patio area is 221?
224,
224.
yes. 224 and a half, plus or minus.
And does that hold true all the way around the pool?
Yeah, for the most part, all the patio that's around the pool up to where you kind of see the proposed patio is all existing patio. That's flush with the pool elevation.
So to the north, your grade is equal to the grade of the patio?
This area you're referring to right here or over here?
To the northwest, let's say.
Northwest, okay, yeah, over here.
Yes.
So this area is actually about 2 feet higher. There's a 226 that cuts through right about here, 225. So this small retaining wall is just to create a little bit of area in the front, just so they have a little, like a lawn area next to the pool.
So there's less of a grade change to the northwest than there is to
the southeast, is that where you're going?
there's less of a grade change to the northwest than there is to the southeast, correct?
Yeah, slightly, correct. And that's mostly to do with the existing retaining wall that's holding up the existing patio.
And currently to the, let's just say to the east, right, with the longitudinal line north heading toward the wetland,
Yep.
there is no retaining wall, it just grades to the wetland, correct?
Yeah, it was all graded up to that elevation, correct?
No, there is no grading, it is what it is, correct?
Yeah, what I mean is it was graded when the pool was constructed, yes.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. So what is the distance from the northeast corner of the patio, the proposed patio, to the actual wetland line?
You're
What is the
referring to
dis- what
this
is the
corner
dis-
right here?
Yeah, what is the distance
I
there?
believe that's about 7 feet, it's proposed. As it stands right now, there's an existing, the current, for better lack of a term, is demarcation. There's an existing chain link fence that's about 3 feet off the wetlands right through here that we're kind of pulling everything back from.
And what is the distance between that point and the brook itself?
And the brook itself, I think the brook is very close to the wetlands line here. I think it would probably only be about another foot or two.
So about 8 feet.
Yeah, let's say 8 feet or so.
What is the total square footage of the impervious surface area of the proposed and existing patio area between the 50-foot setback and the wetland?
I know total disturbance area is 4,000 square feet in the 50-foot setback. Of impervious, I don't have the exact number, but I do know the increase in impervious overall, that includes areas outside of the upland, is about 1,136 square feet. Yeah. We're picking up about 1,300 square feet. That includes a large portion of the existing patio areas through these slot drains, as well as all the proposed pool house. So as far as impervious area running directly to the wetlands, we're net about 200 square feet additional that we're picking up compared to what's happening right now.
Sorry, let me rephrase my question. So what is the area of developed space between the 50-foot setback and the wetland? Square feet, do you know how many square feet that is?
Of total impervious, you're saying, in that
Correct.
area?
Yes.
I don't know the exact number, but I'd say looking at this, it's probably very close to about 1,500 square feet. If you're referring to basically just this, the impervious area from the 50-foot line to the wetlands under
Yeah,
existing.
everything from your lot, everything from that 50-foot, yes, correct,
To
to
the
the
wetlands.
wetland. 1,500 square feet?
Of total impervious area, yeah.
That's it?
That's probably about all that's there, yeah. Because the total 4,000 square foot of disturbance also includes, all of this area here that's getting cut out slightly with the retaining wall, the install for the drainage system, maybe about 2,000 square feet, but it's not really, it's not a huge increase. And like I said, the net, we're actually beneficial about 200 square feet that we're picking up.
Well, the pool's 800 square feet. What's the size of the pool house?
The pool house is, I think it's 156. We accounted for about 200 just as a fluff factor.
So I'm just looking at this spatially with my eyeballs. If the pool is 800 square feet and you're another 200 square feet of the pool house, that's 1,200 square, excuse me, oh my gosh, that's 1,000 square feet. And you're saying that the pool deck and the retaining walls would only account for an additional 500 square feet?
500 to 1,000, I would say. All right. Yeah, I see what you're saying, but yeah, that's about right.
It looks more than that, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
so
Yeah, it looks more than that.
here's my 2 cents, is you have very little, so one, you're proposing to develop a site abutting a wetland. You're 7 feet from a wetland. The space between I've measured this before, so I get a bit of a scale. On center of this pillar to on center of the other pillar with the window in between
Yep.
is about 7 feet.
That sounds about right.
So that's how close your pool house and your pool are going to be to potentially that brook. I have concern with that. The second is you have a very large expanse of impervious surface area, which is going to be hot in the summer, and that water is going to move. You also have potential for heavy water events, and it's going to find its way into the wetland. That patio is existing. What I'm concerned about is the expansion of that. As a general course, you're an engineer, you probably mentioned this to your client already, is I would not see as a prudent and feasible alternative the disturbance closest to the wetland and/or the proposal of a pool house 7 feet from the wetland.
Sure, I understand what you're saying with that, but again, that area is it's already somewhat disturbed and developed. In a way, not maybe necessarily developed, but there has been material that was placed there for long ago. That's the kind, we're trying to take advantage of that material that's already there.
Well, we would ask
That's
you to
okay.
take advantage of that to improve the economical value of the site.
And there's nothing that I know that says that if a land is disturbed, we need to disturb it more. with a
No,
certain-
I totally understand, but that was my point, is that with this area already having been somewhat altered, we were trying to take advantage of proposing our activity in an area that has been altered, whereas this area is still virgin. It has not really been touched all that much.
We've had applicants, we've had many applicants recently. You could talk to Rick about this. You could review applications that have come to the commission in the past 12 months where the sites have been tight and the applicant has said, hey, I want an outdoor kitchen, or I want a pool house, I want a hot tub, I want an outdoor kitchen patio, I want more patio. I'm using examples of where there was already a material amount of impervious surface area, and the applicants had pulled the new development closer to the house, or incorporated these amenities certainly farther from the wetland than closer to the wetland.
Sure.
And I think that for right now, this is a discussion. That's my rub on this application.
I understand. I totally understand.
Let me ask, could you describe the brook? What the flow is? Is it intermittent? I mean, it's hard now, particularly with the snow.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say, I don't know if you stopped by the site, but it's very difficult to see
Yeah,
anything
it's
right now.
impossible.
Yeah, it's, there's
And the
two
brook
foot
from the
sides.
site plan, it looks like it starts right in the middle of the property.
Yeah, so there's a culvert that comes through here. I believe, I don't know exactly where it
Underground?
comes from.
The
Yeah.
culvert's underground?
Yeah, there's a head wall that sits right here,
Yeah.
there the culvert's spilling out to it, coming from, I believe, this direction, give or take.
Mhm.
It might be from this catch basin, or maybe from a culvert from across the street. I wasn't really able to tell because there's a lot of overgrowth. There's a lot of blockages in this brook. It's pretty, I don't know if you really got a chance to see without the snow, but there's a lot of debris that's out there, sticks, twigs. I mean, there's a heck of a lot of bamboo, probably,
Yeah,
5 or 6 truckloads at least of bamboo that would have
it's
to be
like
removed.
20 feet tall, too.
Yeah, some of it's very extensive.
Did you perk test in the 3 locations that were prudent feasible alternatives? So to the northwest, the northeast, and the south, and to the south? So you perked where you would put the drainage.
You
Because
mean
you're
a-
proposing to put the drainage there. You
Yeah.
dug test pit number 4 there.
Yes.
Did you,
When you say do you mean test hole, like a exploratory test pit?
yeah, correct.
Yeah, no, we didn't go anywhere over there because there's existing infrastructure. We didn't know, it's all elevated. We can't really access that with the machine as it stands right now, because you'd have to go either over the patio into these areas, because like I said, there's a 2.5, 3 foot wall that stands right here.
But you could hand dig a test pit.
Test pits are about 7 feet deep. You can't really hand dig a test pit.
Okay. Where the planter is was there ability to dig a test pit over there?
These proposed planters, you mean?
I don't know if it's, I see the swale, so the demarcation
Yep,
of the
coming
swale
through
and there's
here.
planter.
Yeah,
So to the
this area.
north, the northwest?
The existing electrical line runs right about through here, and then this is a propane tank. So unfortunately, no, we weren't really able to dig in that area, just in fear of hitting utilities.
So and did you dig a test pit where the proposed pool house would go?
Again, that's an area we couldn't really access because it's elevated and there's patio in between. Driving on the patio with a machine would have destroyed the patio.
So I see this is located as TP number 4. Did you have
Correct.
TP 1 through 3?
1 through 3 are on the other side of the property. Those 1 through 3 were for the health department, for the design of the septic reserve area.
So TP4 is the only test that you dug for purposes of drainage.
Correct. It's pretty common practice to only do that if we find suitable soil that we don't need, for efforts of not disturbing lawn areas or anything else, and risk of hitting utilities, things of that nature.
Let me ask one more on prudent and feasible alternatives. On the southwest corner, if you,
Plan view
sorry,
southwest?
the other
Over
side,
here.
right there.
Yep.
Away from the wall, where there's a planter designated.
Yes, yeah, the existing garden.
It's hard to get the orientation, I'm used to the north view.
This
Right
planter?
there.
Yep.
Yeah, catty-cornered, 45-degree angle. What is there, catty-cornered?
To the building,
So you're saying if we were to do something kind of on a diagonal like this?
diagonal from that, yes,
Yeah.
exactly right there.
Right now, there's some steps. That's also, I don't think there's flashing on the building. It would require modifications to the building to bring the grade up that high up against the building. Because the foundation was.
Explain that to me. So the pool house is gonna be on a slab, right?
Yes, yeah, but we'd have to bring fill in to get that slab up to the correct elevation.
But you'd be.
I mean, I suppose you could have it kind of
You'd be
floating.
outside the upland review area at that spot, wouldn't you?
Partially, yes, yeah, there would still be a small amount that's in it, but yes.
But why wasn't that considered prudent and feasible alternative?
It's directly right up against the house, and the other concern is, you know, if-
I'm talking like at a 45-degree angle, so it'd be point to point, not up directly against.
that's what I mean, yeah, like something like this, right, on a 45.
Yeah,
So to do that, to get access around the building, you would have to bring the grade up probably something like this with a retaining wall. And I don't believe, because this part walks out to grade, a lot of that building, you know, when you do the foundation, you need at least a foot from grade to your, like, a step down unless you do special provisions during construction for termite and water protection. So, I mean, it's not that, I haven't really looked into that option, but that would be a concern that we'd have to make sure we can address at the time.
I think, just because this is a discussion,
Yeah.
I think there's opportunities for alternatives, which might not be where the applicant would truly desire that pool house to be. But I think if there's a true desire to have a pool house, you might want to recommend some alternatives. Preferably outside the upland review area. My perspective on this is, we've had a lot of applications where I think some commission managers have declined to approve these applications, where the pools are 7 feet from the wetland.
Sure.
I mean, some sites, agnostically speaking, some sites are just not designed to have pool amenities 7 feet from the wetland. In this application, you have an existing patio and an existing pool where a material amount of that impervious surface area is already into the wetland area.
Correct.
It's beyond the upland review area. I would strongly consider evaluating a prudent, feasible alternative than placing the pool house 7 feet from the wetland.
8 feet from the brook.
Correct.
Sure. Well, again, then that's kind of where the planting plan, we understood that this was going to be a somewhat aggressive position for the pool house, which is why the planting plan involves, I mean, it's literally hundreds of plants, if I'm not mistaken, between everything. By the time you go, or yeah, there's, you know, 9, 37, 30, 19, 30. They're all plantings that are proposed to reclaim some of that lawn area, propose a permanent, not only the demarcation with the fence and the wall, but the demarcation with plantings to treat any additional water quality that might be concerned.
Which I appreciate that, but what you have to appreciate is that you're proposing to disturb an area 8 feet from the bank of a water course and to install hardscape 7 feet from that demarcation.
I understand.
Okay, there's not enough buffer, in my opinion, to circumvent or ecologically improve that disturbance.
I understand where you're coming from, but I do understand your point, but the point I'm making is, like, what alternative would you think would be the most preferable in that case if we were to do so? Mainly because there's, you know, there's going to be disturbance associated with any kind of area that we were to put this. And there's other considerations to do. You know, if we were to do the pool house, as was mentioned somewhere through here, it does kind of make it very difficult for us to figure out exactly how we're going to get that area to grade. And we may need to import fill in order to get that area to be leveled off.
What's the distance between the pool, the existing pool, and the proposed pool house? How many feet is that?
I believe that's about 15 feet.
15 feet. Is there any reason that there has to be so much patio around the pool? Could the pool house be shifted to the, I don't know what direction that would be.
Toward the pool.
Toward the pool.
Plan west in this case, yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think we could probably bring it a couple feet closer for sure. If that would make you more comfortable.
And the other thing, were you guys saying?
What I was gonna say is I could strongly encourage you to find a way to dig your test pits for your drainage, maybe to find another location for your drainage, and to pick either the northwest or the southeast location for a pool house, to keep it simple.
Well, you're talking here or here.
Correct. In my experience, it's 100% conceivable for you to dig a pit and perk it and see where the waters are. Well, you wouldn't, because one would be for the pool house and the other would be for
The
your
drainage.
drainage.
Sure.
Or
I
Peter's
understand.
example of bringing it closer to the house. I mean, you have an enormous size of impervious surface area. I would not be recommending to expand on that and be closer to the brook. Full stop. I have no further comments.
Thank you.
Peter?
No other comments.
Just in terms of alternatives, you had mentioned different locations for the pool house, but Rick had also asked about surface treatments, alternatives for surface treatments, and what is the material of the proposed patio?
The patio is going to be some sort of stone, concrete with stone on top.
Okay, concrete with stone. Is there any possibility of introducing some alternatives in the realm of the patio material, like to
You're
perhaps
referring like to a
introduce some
permeable patio?
Mm-hmm.
So I've had this argument before, and I don't really like permeable patios, mainly because, in my experience, after about 5-10 years, they tend to be clogged because they're very, very difficult to maintain. I think it's far more beneficial to provide slot drains, because the slot drain can very easily be cleaned. You just come in with your hand and dig it out, or you could even jet the line should something get clogged in there. A permeable patio tends to, no matter how you do your maintenance log, because it is inherently allowing material or water to flow through it, you're going to get fine materials, silt and sediment getting through there, and it's eventually going to basically just clog itself and make it impermeable in the end.
So that's why that wasn't brought up
That's,
as an
yeah,
alternative.
I've dealt with them before, and I've had this issue where we've had to kind of rip up the patio and lay it back down after about 5 or 10 years.
And on the planting plan, the boulders, there's the boulder demarcation.
Yes.
It's 3 boulders and they're 25 feet apart. Is there any reason why, a lot of times we see a greater number of boulders that are closer than that?
Yeah. We could certainly add more boulders and make it closer. That's not an
Okay.
issue at all.
And then also with regard to the planting plan, the bamboo, I think, nicely outlines the initial steps for dealing with it, but it's a very difficult material.
Very much so.
Is there any long-term management strategies to follow? Because it sounded like it would be periodically checked through the growing season, but then what about growing season 2? Because
Yeah.
even the smallest amount of root
Yeah,
left.
oh yeah, of course. I mean, even a small piece of root this big can grow out a whole new forest in 10 years.
Right.
So yeah, this is, the homeowners are very well aware that this is an ongoing struggle and an ongoing maintenance thing that they're gonna need to do. I don't know that the plan specifies for long-term maintenance beyond, I think, 2 growing seasons, but I'm sure we'd be happy to add, additional growing seasons to be maintaining and observing for any new sprouts, shall we say, of bamboo.
Okay, and then I would just, also on the planting plan, I'm not sure if organic land care was mentioned here, but
Yes.
it is, yeah, okay. Then
Organic
just
lawn
make
care and
sure of that.
non-synthetic deer.
Yeah, because of going right into the brook and
Yes,
the
absolutely.
wetlands. I share Michael and Peter's concern about the amount of new impervious surface and the proximity of the pool house. Can I just ask you to specify again the size of the pool house? Because on the planting plan, I thought I heard you say it was 20 feet by something?
Yeah, I
12
apologize,
by
yes,
20,
I
you
was, that was a mistake. It's a 10 by 16.
Okay,
yes.
that's what the planting plan
Yeah,
says,
150.
yeah.
It came out to be like 160 square feet, give or take. Our drainage analysis accounted for 200 as a buffer, just in case, like overhangs or something.
Okay. Yeah. That's all that I have for right now.
Alex? You're good? Right.
Well, actually, I just have one question.
Yeah.
With respect to bamboo, getting rid of it, do you have to, I think with Phragmite, if you cut it 3 years in a row, it goes.
I don't believe bamboo works like that. You
Okay.
have
Yeah.
to pull the root mass out for bamboo.
Yep.
It's very, very difficult to get rid of, if I'm being honest.
Has that been there for a long time, or?
I don't know, I haven't
It
asked
has
the
been.
homeowner, but.
I actually asked, I met the homeowner and
Yeah.
I asked her that same question. They did not install it.
I
It was
gotcha.
Yeah,
there.
no, I don't believe they did.
And I think they've
mean,
been there for, since maybe,
I think the house was constructed in 16, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was there since then.
okay,
It's a big root system in there.
yeah.
Yes, the
established.
square footage of it is greater than this room.
Yeah.
Of its root system, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's massive, yeah.
Is the only way for bamboo to spread is to transplant the tuber? Or,
I believe it does.
But it grows,
Can
it
I be wrong?
grows
It's
over
by-
time.
well,
by
it
the
can't,
root.
it can't,
It doesn't like pollinate, if that's what
Correct.
you're asking. I don't believe so, no, but it's highly invasive and extremely aggressive.
yeah.
It chokes pretty much anything else living around it out and takes over. And it loves sitting in it doesn't matter, dry, water, anything, it'll,
So even if
grow.
you cut it down and submerge it,
Even
like
if
with
you-
the Phragmites, it won't.
no,
won't
it
kill
has to be full out, dug out and pulled out. And that's why the homeowners, I know the plan may only specify for a few growing seasons, but the homeowners know that this is going to be an ongoing process, pretty much for the duration of the time they're in the house.
Right, right.
Okay, I think you get a sense that that there's a couple of commissioners here that are not happy with the
Proximity.
with the current proposal.
Sure.
Okay, I think reasonable, prudent alternatives need to be explored further. Okay, so I guess where we go from here is, I think I would like to see, from the applicant, further design, 7 feet from the wetland. Okay, if this was, a propane tank, a generator, what I would call typically a health and safety issue, I probably would permit it. But I get hard pressed, Michael, you could probably refresh my memory. I don't remember us getting into 7 feet for what is basically an amenity here. I think, so I guess we have two choices here. Okay, one is, Rick, I think it provides a very significant disturbance, a long-term significant disturbance to the wetland from my perspective. I think I have a couple of, two other commissioners here who would probably support that. And so either, I guess you can work with Rick to come up with alternatives and we can keep this open, okay? Or we, which is I think the preferable method here, to keep this open and come up with alternatives. You can work with Rick. Rick has a pretty good sense of what the commission looks for.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, other than that, or we deny it, okay?
And close it becomes
Or,
most likely
it's my feeling that, I don't know how you two would vote, but I have 1, 2, 3 here that I sense there would be a denial from, okay? But I speak for myself. And so I go there and I go, okay, so your choice.
So out of curiosity, is this something that could be done as a condition of approval at the staff level, or do you want this to come back to you for presentation?
I want this to come back to me for presentation.
In that case,
For me, it would have to come back for presentation.
understood, or effectively we're looking at a denial next month. Okay, I think that kind of answers my question in that case.
Okay, if it was a planting plan, if it was a planting plan or something like that, I'd give it to staff.
No, I totally
But
understand.
this is too big.
So we're just
okay?
going to request additional information, further exploration of alternatives to diminish the encroachment and impacts, and then there was some other things having to do with the boulder demarcation feature and a long-term strategy for the bamboo,
Well said,
yeah.
better said than,
So we'll just ask for that information,
Okay.
and they can respond, but certainly a sense of the commission so far is that as currently proposed, it's probably too much of an encroachment, and that to look for alternative spaces or alternative designs that's going to enhance
Correct.
that buffer.
correct. Okay,
I completely agree.
all right,
Out of curiosity, do you guys meet once a month, correct?
correct.
Or is that, okay.
Once
that case, I will-
once a month, you get, Rick has a calendar.
Yes, yeah, it would be in March.
He can tell you what, the exact thing, so,
Very good.
I thought your presentation was great on explaining it, though.
I'm pretty good at that, but you know, there's only so much I can do. Thank you very much. Have a good night, guys.
Thank
yeah,
you.
good job. Okay. Moving on, EPC 03-2026 PL 25-200, 40 West Avenue, Town of Darien. To maintenance dredge a pond and forebay in Tilly Pond Park. Project affects wetlands, watercourses, and upland review areas. The property lies along the north side of West Avenue, just east of Lakeside Avenue, and is identified as map number 17, lot number 87. The zone is R1/3 and R15, and it is approximately 8.50 acres.
Mr. Chairman, the application was accepted at last month's meeting, and the proposal is to maintenance dredge the large pond and the forebay, or we'll call it the small pond on the property, in order to restore depth, provide some cooling waters, some additional flood storage space, and improve the overall aesthetics. We're talking about Tilly Pond Park, and you know, the facilities that are there include, there's a warming hut or pergola that's there, some seating areas, terrace pathways. There's a spillway. There's a berm that helps contain the pond. And that property is characterized by the presence of gently to moderately sloping uplands. There are wetlands. There are water courses. There's a stone-lined pond, the big pond, the sediment basin, or the forebay, or the small pond, we'll call it. And then many large trees, particularly to the east. The property supports both wetlands and non-wetland areas. And those are depicted or outlined on the agenda summary report. Portions of the property, they do not lie within the 100-year storm, but fall within the space that is affected by the 500-year storm, or it's called the shaded zone X, which is not subject to the detailed regulation of the flood regulations. Historically, I did include in my agenda summary report, there's 5 separate EPC permit applications for work on Tilly's Pond over the years, ranging back to 1980. A lot of them are relating to dredging, others relating to increasing the stability of the banks, and to do some other general improvements around the pond. The last being in 2021 to dredge the forebay. So the applicant's currently proposing, very much like the couple other items that were here tonight on Weeburn, and is to maintenance dredge the pond and the forebay. Again, to remove the accumulated sediments, restore the depth, cool the waters, storage capacity improvements, and again, aesthetics. If you go out to this site, I know some of you live in the Ventura vicinity, the pond is currently chemically treated on a yearly basis and is aerated to limit growth of algae in the pond and reduce nuisance odors. Again, it's going to be a maintenance dredge done by suction dredging in the larger pond with the barge, the smaller pond by the hand dredger. Again, drain it to the geotextile bags, allowing it to dewater and compress. And the material will be not handled by any of the municipal workers, but handled by the contractor, and will be shipped from site to a facility for further use and processing. In this particular instance, being a public property, we requested that the materials be tested. And in the agenda summary report, in the submitted materials, those test results have been provided. They test for pretty typical items, and most of them have fallen below detectable limits. And some of the items, some of the materials tested did show trace amounts of some metals and some pesticide. However, there's been a conclusion by the professional testing laboratory that they fall below the acceptable limits for not only commercial properties, but for residential properties in direct contact, which is a positive thing. The other positive thing here is whatever is going to be dredged and dried and consolidated will be trucked off-site. The applicant reports that about 105,000 square feet of open water and there's a little over 2 acres and 23,000 square feet of the upland review area will be temporarily or permanently impacted. There's also erosion controls that are being proposed to limit the impacts. And again, it's erosion controls, in-water controls, out-of-water controls, due to things like the geotextile tubes and plastic being put down, so there's no erosion of the spaces between the geotextile bags. All the things that you typically you attribute to pond dredging, the positives will be applied at this site. One thing that I do note that a planting plan has not, or has yet not been provided to displace lawn, stabilize the bank, filter runoff, but certainly that can be requested and required as a condition of an approval. Probably an important piece, just like on Weber, is that they had some short grasses around the edge, and there is a balance of in the golf course of plain space, what it is, and doing things that are environmentally sensitive. Here there's possibilities for improving areas that are currently held as lawn and to improve the overall conservation values or the filtering capability of the site. Again, there's been quite a dedication on the town's behalf to make this an amenity, and you can see since 1980 there's been at least 5 applications to try to make it better because it accumulates a great degree of.
So what are the neighbors doing to fill this pond?
What's that?
I'm looking, what are the neighbors doing to fill this pond?
I have no idea, except I will tell you it's green most of the time, and it's obvious to me that there's a high degree of nutrient fertilizer that's flowing from the northward bound neighbors. I have no other explanation, and it's true, there are complaints about smells. The fire department was called out because someone thought they smelled natural gas.
Oh, wow.
I think that's why they called me.
Those poor firefighters had to, put on their jackets and kind of go out and then,
Wow.
But so it's, it should be the jewel park of
Right.
the town, clearly in the central business district, and a lot of people sit there and have lunch, and it's,
Which
it
is why
needs
it
work.
needs some nice.
Yeah, it needs to get this done. This needs to get done.
You'll
Yeah.
find not only muck in there, but you're gonna find shopping carts and a whole bunch of stuff.
Wow.
I can say that.
As long as he takes them offside, I don't care.
We've got a collection, believe me. So we have Matt Vogt, New England Aquatic Services, representing the town of Darien. This is a project, we're working directly with the Park and Rec Department. So just to elaborate again, similar to the previous application I discussed tonight, same equipment, floating dredge for the main pond here. The smaller pond, which I've been referring to as the forebay pond, sedimentation pond, whatever you want to call it here. We will have a trailer mounted pump here with intake hose. We actually have guys in the water that are hand sucking up and vacuuming that material, but pumping it to the same dewatering tube, so it's really the same system. We made a little bit of an alteration to the site plan since, I think, the initial acceptance last month in terms of where the dewatering tubes are going to be staged. The initial consideration was based a little bit on older plans, but after kind of hearing some of the comments from the last meeting, I think we adjusted that a little bit, made a little bit more sense. So what we have here is the 2 primary dewatering tubes that'll take the material from what I'm calling the main pond and from the forebay pond. Those are adjacent to the pond and the stream that runs through it, so that as we pump the material in there, the water drains and will immediately go right back into the system. We have an alternate, a secondary dewatering tube that's across the street pathway that's in the park. Space is limited, but we wanted to keep some space open. We're hoping to not have to use that area on the far side of the driveway, but we wanted to have it set up in case we need the space to dewater more material. So in this case, we would have that be surrounded by the plastic liner on all four sides, and we would actively pump that material through back to the pond itself, so it wouldn't be running across open ground. We would have a secondary pump over here with a float switch that would pump the draining water as needed. But the goal will be to force it all into these tubes here, and I'm optimistic we'll be able to keep it to that, but we wanted to have a contingency in case the unexpected happened. The material will be trucked off-site. We've got a separate subcontractor that's going to handle trucking. It has a facility where they process material. They deal with a lot of dredging material, so they're very familiar with this. The goal here, obviously, is this pond, the main pond, is not very deep. I think 5 feet deep or something like that max. So you've lost 25 to 30%, I think, of the depth, which isn't that much material compared to the 10 feet of the previous application, but it's significant when you talk about kind of the minimal depth that's in the pond. So the goal is to reset this pond back to its hard bottom from whenever it was constructed. I actually don't know the details of any of the dredging that might have been done here in the past. The worst areas, of course, are really above these islands here where the inlet comes in. The forebay pond is full to capacity at this point. I know that they did do some dredging in that pond back in 2021. I don't know if it was extensive or complete. I know that they took material out. I can't speak to whether or not it was kind of down to ground
So it wasn't
zero.
you.
It wasn't me in this case. I think they had my understanding is there was something else going on, and they kind of quickly got the permit to get that done while they were around. But our goal after we get the main pond clean and get the forebay pond clean is, we proposed it in our proposal to the town is to monitor this, at least check it twice a year and keep track again, like we talked about the other one, as to what the rate is that this pond is filling up. Because frankly, it's working. It's really working well by design. It's just it hasn't been maintained on the timely basis that it needs to, because now that it's full, everything's just shooting right across it and getting down to the main pond, and that's why it's filling up. So the goal is to be able to kind of commit and develop a program, a better program for maintaining this forebay pond in the future to extend the life of any dredging work for the main pond, because it's a lot harder and more difficult to get that material out of here than it would be to pump it out of here. So one of the things that we've discussed is I don't have the data now as to how long I need in between dredging of that forebay pond to keep it clear, but as we monitor it in this next section in a couple years, 4 years from now, whenever it comes time that this needs to be done again, likely we would propose kind of an ongoing program of every however many years we determine for future permitting, so that we can kind of maintain it and get it cleared out before it becomes full and that material starts getting into that bigger pond. Regarding the planting plan, I certainly understand the concern about that right now. One of the goals for this project is to be able to get this dredging done and the material out of the park before we hit the warm summer season, so that we're not impacting the activity and the use of the pond into the summer. The process to alter the overall plan of the park really has to go through the park commission and whatever planning that they would do that would change kind of the shorelines and the things that would need to be done for a appropriate landscape mitigation plan. So I guess what I would request is that, with the understanding that they would be willing to look at that and do that, if it was a possibility to have that as a condition or a staff thing down the line, because getting that done and agreed upon with a lot of different voices, it still allows us to get this done in a timely manner, might be prohibitive. Aside from that, access here is pretty easy because we have this road for trucks coming in and out to remove material. We'll have turbidity curtains across the outflow here on the far end of the pond. And I think that's as much as I can think of to tell you. I'm not sure if there's other
Michael,
details.
anything?
Is there, two questions, is there opportune time to dredge a pond? Ecologically speaking, I mean, we're not saying because it's winter and it's cold and you gotta be in the pond, but ecologically speaking, is there an opportune time to dredge a pond?
It's frozen.
So we do a lot of our dredging in the fall, winter, and early spring, because I think of it as less impactful the way that we do it. traditional mechanical methods, they prefer lower flow times of year, but we like to have more water in there and a little less activity going on around it. So that's really when we target to do it. So I like to think of, personally, when we do it, we like to focus on those colder months because they're a little less active. Stirring up turbidity in the summertime can be a little bit more detrimental. I don't know how much, but when you start kicking up the bottom and have nutrients in the water, and that can feed into a algae growth cycle, it is to a certain degree less desirable, I guess, than doing it in those colder months when there's a lot less biological activity.
Is there an outlier, like best practices for dewatering? Do you have, like, as you market your services to people and organizations, do you have a roadmap that you just like to follow? We're going to muck out the pond, and I want to come back 2 years from now, or I want to come back next year and see what happens, and if everything looks good, I'll see you in another 5 years. I don't. What do you? We get a lot of people that come to the commission from mucking out ponds, because of the smell and the lack of water.
Sure.
But from an ecological and environmental value basis, what would you say to us that is a best practice?
I'm not sure I totally understand the question, if I'm being honest. So,
Well,
I got a few
okay.
different questions.
We have that problem too.
Yeah, no, mucking out
Yeah.
the pond. What's a best practice? You come like, if, for example,
Okay.
all these applications, we have no water in this pond, so we're gonna scoop out all the muck. All right, now what do? Wait for them to call you in another 10 years?
Okay, understand now. So it depends on the pond. Part of it depends on the specific situation of what I would recommend. So that's why in a situation like this, where you clearly have active material coming in regularly, monitoring that on a regular basis and being prepared to come in more often to maintain it is what I would recommend.
So you have a lot of storm water that's flushing into
Yeah.
Tilly Pond. So knowing that, you say, hey, there's gonna be a lot of sediment, but I don't have a baseline, so I'm not gonna know, so you need to watch it, and then you get an idea of how much the bottom gets filled up, and you probe it, and then you get out in a little kayak or a little boat, you probe it, and you see how much picked up in 1 year, and you can forecast what it's gonna do 3 years in the future.
Exactly. Or I like to use a 2-year baseline,
Okay.
unless we're starting to see really significant stuff.
And then you
first
say,
year,
hey,
yeah.
Rick, I'm gonna see you in 3 years, guaranteed.
Right. So my intention on a project like this would be, let's say 3 years from now, I see that we're half full, so I can say, okay, in 6 years this thing's gonna be full, but we don't want to wait 6 years.
Right.
So next year I'm gonna come and I want to dredge this thing out, and then I want to be back again in 4 years.
So can you use the 2021 exercise where they dredged that pond as a primer for what you would need to do for Tilly Pond as a whole?
I could start there. I don't know the details of what the end result of that project was because I wasn't involved. And I don't know that there's,
Okay.
you know what I mean? So my only concern with that, frankly, is that let's say only a foot of stuff was taken out. I could say, hey, I'll be back here in 3-4 years, and then come back, and we may not be ready yet.
So this
That's
is
just the baseline.
Yeah, so this is all science. So you could take a measurement and there's a formula where you can forecast how much buildup there would be.
Well, unless
To a
other
degree,
factors
yeah.
change. Unless, like, for example, it seems like the pond is fed through catch basins. That's what the director, Park and Rec Director, said in her letter. So if we can get people to, the people who are upstream who have their lawn going all the way up to the water course, all of a sudden maybe put in a little bit of a buffer next to their water course, so less, am I right? Less sediment is going into the water course, so less is coming down to feed it? Do you see where I'm going?
Yeah, that's what I was saying regarding storm. I'm thinking, because you were mentioning metals, right? Metals in ponds where there isn't a industrial factory next door. Most of that's coming from just stormwater runoff from roofs, the metals off of a asphalt shingle roof, or stuff that gets spread on the road to de-ice it, and all that garbage, right? So if the town, I'm coming from the perspective the town's putting quite a bit of economic resource into maintaining it, and we haven't really maintained it, what's the formula going forward? Is it just going to be a reactionary step every decade? That's.
Right,
where
no, and that's a
I
great
was
question.
asking.
That's
You
where
don't
we
know
try to.
because you don't know the
Because we
sediment
have-
inflow.
Yeah,
Right,
Okay,
that's it.
But what I would say is that the plan going forward is to start for the first time monitoring that proactively to determine that, right? So if we come out a year after we do the dredging and there's a foot of stuff already in there, it's like, okay, we got to get on this. We're not going to wait until they're like, oh, it's full again, it's time to put a permit in. You know what I mean? We're going to kind of be.
So the last piece that I think hinges on all this is you had mentioned a planting plan. And my thought would be, are there buffers around the inlets that, I personally wouldn't, personally, it's a planting plan along Tilly Pond to dredge it isn't on my radar, but maybe there's strong buffers that need to be planted as part of this application where the inlets are, so we're doing exactly what you were speaking to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Within the park, you mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't think there's sediment
I don't
coming
know.
from
Yeah,
those
I don't
areas.
know. Yeah.
But the park itself isn't what's contributing the sediment. There's not runoff.
It's
from-
upstream.
It's
It
somewhere
would be
else.
upstream. I mean, it's erosion in the stream beds. It's, storm drains. It's kind of everything for however far it's moving quickly before it
Are
hits.
there any parts where there is erosion? I love Tilly Pond, I really do. I mean, I have memories, like strolling the little kids through, and my boy still goes over there with a stick and string and he's 7 years old, and he thinks he's gonna catch a fish.
No shopping carts.
Yeah, that'll be his teenage years, right?
I haven't seen any evidence in the park of material being contributed from that area.
Is there erosion on the banks that, in your opinion, are there other economic?
Not
They were
not the
armored.
park now. I mean, a lot of that's
Armored,
reinforced with
yeah.
stone. I think that
Yeah,
might have
they
been
put
taken
stone
care of.
around it.
Yeah, that
There
was
is
in Rick's
some,
report.
there is some, because if you look at like where the berm is, in fact, there had been a prior application to try to restore the berm around the edge because it's subject to erosion. They had storm damage that was subject to erosion. The berm itself is impacted by trees. Town will eventually have to get in there and do something about that.
Wait, which berm are you?
There's a berm around them.
Oh, around the pond.
Around the pond,
Yeah.
closer to the spillway. So, and the other thing is, I don't believe that it's just drainage from the street, that there's a water course that's up along,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, some Robin Lane, that
Right,
goes into a
right.
pipe. And I think part of that comes through here
We
as
know
well.
the neighbors are done.
But,
Yeah.
It's neither here nor there. It's, you got the velocity in the channel, it gets to the opening part in the pond, and it drops out all the sediment.
Right.
So, we're establishing the baseline now.
Mm-hmm.
And then if there is a program that comes back every year, you can kind of judge when the next dredge, that's not gonna be X times 10, X to the 10th power is gonna be X times, to the second power in terms of maintenance.
Right.
But I do think it's important to take these opportunities to say that maybe lawn grass is not the greatest thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
To
have
go
it-
right up to a water
a
course.
water course,
Yeah.
you do some select planting as part of this, do it as a condition of approval. And they can do it in the fall after this is completely dredged. And that's gonna be an added benefit to this pond and downstream, the water course as it moves downstream.
And it's also an educational opportunity for residents because residents will, number one, learn about native plantings, but number two, see that it's good to have a buffer against a water course. So if they have one in their properties, they can, you know what I'm saying? Like,
That's a pretty neat idea, actually.
yeah.
And
It's
it
a
doesn't
good.
have to be-
Eric's gonna roll his eyes at me.
Yes, I walk around parks looking for ideas to,
It
No,
doesn't
but
have to
it,
be-
not that
That's
people would
me.
get the idea from looking at it, but it would
Are
have
there-
to be publicized.
Are there areas
too.
where there's erosion that's a concern that should be addressed while this pond dredging's going on? I mean, you're gonna have equipment and disturbance, and are there some places that need to get patched up?
I think that's part of a long-term plan, because as I said, this berm looks to need some work. The roots are more concerning to me that are in the elevated portions of the berm. Eventually, those trees are gonna fall, and it's gonna tear out sections of the berm. So I guess there are areas though along the channels and stuff that are subject to erosion, and I think you can do that as the dredging occurs first, and as the landscaping response is, it could be, touching up these places like they do in all these landscape plans. So I would do that as a
yeah,
condition
okay,
of approval.
I think we've beaten this to death.
Yeah, I just had
One quick
I
question.
have
This
one
is
question.
on behalf of my high school son. We were just talking about this, walking around Tilly Pond Park. There are koi in there. He tells me koi are carp, but I don't know. And there are also turtles. So I'm asking for him, what do you do with the koi and the turtles?
So really the big advantage to our process over traditional methods, we have to drain the water down completely and dig it out, is that where we're pumping, where we're actively pumping, is only an area right in front of the pond.
Understand.
The whole rest of the pond is kind of
So
like
you
an
just
area.
vacuuming it up and
Swim
everything?
Yeah,
away.
and they'll swim away, and you know, we
That's
make a racket.
good enough for
and,
me.
you know, for the most part,
Yeah.
that's,
Thank you.
you know.
I have a quick question. The duration of the project, what's your estimate?
Yeah, probably 6 to 8 weeks, although now that we're getting a little further into the spring, I might try to get a second machine in there to move it along a little bit quicker if I have it available. This is just a lot of square footage, the main pond, to work its way through, so it also depends on the ice situation and when we get started and how much de-icing you have to do.
Obviously, we would like it to be a good job, but as brief as possible.
Sure, understood.
Quick question. So Rick had mentioned that the results of this sediment testing showed that the chemical level was, you know, totally acceptable. No worrisome contaminants. If I understand correctly, only one sample was taken. Is that typical of?
So, you can take more. I mean, we took it right from that main deposit area where stuff's coming in, where it would be kind of the worst.
So it was in the
Settle
fore
out.
pond?
No, I'm sorry, in the main pond.
In the main pond, okay.
But at that inlet area. You know, ultimately, in this case, there's not a whole lot of concern on our end compared to other, you know, places where there is a history where you could have a higher likelihood of issues. And certainly in this case, the contractor who's gonna end up taking that material, that's their, you know, they're not gonna take it somewhere without testing results, and if they need to test it again on the way out, they
Okay,
would
so
do
this is
that.
really just kind of a screening process.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this at least tells us in advance that
Yeah,
there's
that there's
nothing
no, like,
glaring that we need to
PCBs
be
in
worried
there or
about.
something.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
And then I just, you know, going back to the planting plan, Rick, I think, you know, it's hard to tell now because of the time of year, and the snow cover, but, you know, I don't know if there are any invasives in there, any, you know, non-native invasives there that would need to be remediated, but if there are, I think I think that can be a really good learning opportunity for the community. And because it would be publicized, not because people would just absorb it. But I do think, you know, even I think the Park and Rec director had mentioned that because the pond is used by the community, that's why she didn't want to put in a planning plan. But I totally disagree. I really do feel like there should be. It doesn't have to be every square inch around it, and it shouldn't be for the reason she said.
It's select planting.
Select planting,
Right.
absolutely.
Select spaces.
Right.
So we all, I think we have agreement on that, that it needs a select planting plan, and we'll leave that to Rick.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
be approved by staff. Okay, so that's
With your
good.
input.
Well,
So, you're welcome, you're
I
welcome.
just-
All right, Rick, I think we have agreement. Matt, thank you very much for your 3 contributions tonight.
Thank you.
Pleasure. We'll be
We-
seeing each other more in the near future here too, I believe.
We hope you're back, okay? Because we as a commission believe in dredging, believe it's when it's done right. It can be a great benefit to the property owners, the community, to the long-term strategic health of the watercourses in this town.
and happy you'll be busy for the next few.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, these projects will be done sort of simultaneously. Do you have like enough equipment to handle all these projects?
So timing might change. I mean, this is the highest priority right now. I mean, we have a few others that, you know, once we get to a certain point in time, they may be pushed off to the fall to get them done.
Yeah.
But yeah, we try to stay as busy as we can. It just
Great.
coincidentally, we have quite a few here in Darien that are not connected, but you know,
Yeah.
Well,
here we are.
thank you for making
Thank you.
Darien
Yes.
smell better again.
Yes.
You know, I do what I can.
I'll draft the resolution for March 4th.
Great.
Yeah,
Move back.
thank
Okay,
you so much.
Yeah. Okay, moving on, we have the approval of minutes for January 7. 2026. Commissioners should have received that. Any questions or comments?
I had some comments that I forwarded to Rick, and I copied you on.
Yes.
I don't know if you had a chance to look at them.
They're good.
I just, there were little typos and things, but I did want to, I did want to change that area reflecting the comments that I had made about one application last meeting. I just want to make sure that gets changed.
Okay, with that, may I have a
Yes,
motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of January's public hearing and regular meeting of January 7th, 2026, as amended.
Second that motion?
All in favor? Okay, 4 and 1
Abstain.
abstention.
Fine.
Yeah, no, because you weren't there.
It's true, but I-
Okay. Now, I need a motion to adjourn?
Yes, so we are, make a motion to adjourn the meeting of January 5th?
No, today's
January 4th?
February.
February.
February 4.
It's too late.
Want to rephrase?
Yes, I make a motion to approve it was a public hearing, but we didn't have the public hearing, and regular meeting of EPC February 4th, 2026.
Second the motion to adjourn February 4th, 2026.
All in favor?
Can I vote on it?
Yes. Good night, Channel 79.
Oh, my goodness.